Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the two-man game here on Claves Online. I'm Bob Ramsey. That is my partner, Matt Rocchio, as we break down local college basketball, in particular St. Louis U, and we dip our toe in the water on some NBA things that Matt thinks are pertinent. And I will tell you, Matt, you're making me pay a little closer attention to the NBA. I've always been a fan, but some of the things you're talking about with the NBA, I'm enjoying, and it's enhancing my viewing pleasure.
Yes, and here's the good thing is we have you who are a verifiable expert on all things SLU, and I'm just I'm a novice out here, throwing dartboards, throwing darts at a board. So instead of just having me talk some NBA, what we're going to start doing here on the show, I'm really excited about. We're going to start incorporating some more guests on the show. Memphis is having a huge season. You're a good friend of Rob Fisher. Probably see him down the line just to talk some Memphis basketball. We're looking to line up some other ones. So I'm excited about the NBA talk on this show, but we're going to expand it a little bit so you don't just have to hear me blathering on about how much fun the St. Louis guys and the Bulls are.
And I think we'll try and do some other things, get some national college, some of the guys and women that cover college basketball nationally, get some of my play-by-play cohorts on board. So we'll do all those things as we move forward. We're still in December. So let's get right into the show and talk about SLU. The Billikens have lost 2 in a row for the first time this year. They're still 7-3 on the season. And at any point in the offseason, you go 7-3. Okay, pretty good. But the Billikens haven't been playing well for a while, including in a couple of victories. And I think the Belmont loss earlier in the week sort of really highlighted some of the issues that are plaguing the team right now. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just right off the bat, I think rebounding is still one of those big issues that I think people want to talk about that again, and the worst times, if you look at the stats, maybe in gross numbers, it's not bad, but the worst timed parts of the game, bad rebounds. The worst time part of the game, bad turnover. It's a team that isn't, and that's why they're winning the games for 30 plus minutes in both the UAB and the Belmont game. They're winning the majority of the game because those kind of mistakes are only coming in clumps and bad times down the stretch. But when that's the time that they're coming, they're always going to be more magnified, which is why those are the two things we're talking about.
Let me emphasize that again, what you're talking about. If you go look at the cumulative stats for the Billikens right now, you'll see 40 rebounds a game, 6 or 7 rebound edge on opponents. You'll see, and I don't know the exact number, probably a dozen, maybe 11 turnovers a game. Those numbers are all really good. But if you dive into the games like you do, and like I see as I watch every game, that inopportune missed rebound opportunities, allowing extra shots for the opposition. The Bills are shooting, well into the mid 40s in field goal percentage, but in their losses, the opposition is getting more opportunities. Why? Because they're getting offensive rebounds, giving them second and third chances, and the Bills are turning it over at inopportune times, and the opposition is taking advantage of those things, especially late in the game.
Yeah, and that's just it's heartbreaking to see that, and it's annoying, and I can't imagine exactly how Travis Ford. Well, I can imagine it, but I don't really want to imagine it exactly how Travis Ford is handling that. But just talking about that, I mean, you broke it down. 14 turnovers was a bad number against Belmont. That's not what you want to see. Yeah. But again, it's not backbreaking. It's not some of the bad games we've seen overall. And total rebounds, they out-rebounded Belmont by 8. But again, it came at bad times when they weren't able to. But I think there's just so many big moments so far in the season, and these close games are going to highlight these moments that people want to focus on it. One thing I think people are going to have been focusing on too much, and again, in a small, compact, very important moment of the game, people saw Martin Linson having some trouble defending on the block against a big man. You look at all the numbers, big guy, people don't shoot well against Martin Linson defensively in the paint, and guys don't score a lot, and guys don't get a ton of rebounds against him either. But all we're thinking about right now is that at the end of that game, Mike Muszynski seemed to just impose his will, possession after possession after possession, and kept putting Belmont in spots where they were able to get easy buckets.
I love numbers. I really do. I love statistics. However, I would say you're a numbers guy. And here's what I don't think the numbers show, that both the things we're talking about, and you illustrated Martin Linson, and I want to talk about Yuri Collins, and I'm going to dovetail into the next part involving Yuri Collins. But here's what I saw against Belmont. Linson got into foul trouble late in the game. His partner at the 5 spot, they sort of split time. Francis Okoro never could get it going. So Martin had to play heavy minutes with foul trouble. I think it became mental, not physical.
Yeah.
Not that he couldn't defend, but that he was afraid of fouling out. That leads to Yuri Collins. Turnovers. Yuri in the last 4 or 5 games committing too many turnovers. And I think it's not a physical issue. Yuri has all the tools. I think it's becoming a mental issue. And I think that Yuri touched on that. You wanted to talk today a little bit about his post-game comments after the Belmont loss that and I'm not sure the chronology without talking to everybody, but I know Travis Ford told us on KMOX radio post-game that he was not happy with decision-making. So the numbers can tell us physically what's going on, but the decision-making and leading to turnovers, and Yuri, I guess, in post-game team meeting and then with the media after, talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, and he took a lot of the harshness on himself and talked about how they haven't been good and he hasn't been good and how he has to shoulder all that responsibility. And the way he phrased it, I think a lot of people thought that maybe Coach Ford was being really hard on him. He said, "Coach, let me know that it's all on me. It's all on me." And I think people want to take that in a negative way, but trying to give Coach the benefit of the doubt, I think it's more of a leadership way. And I think something you mentioned earlier this week on the radio that I think would be great to intimate here is that Travis has mentioned, or maybe not directly mentioned, but kind of intimated towards an issue with leadership on this team. Despite there being been here for a while, it's a team that had two such staunch leaders in Jordan Goodwin and Hassan French. And to watch those two guys leave, and there's just a void there. And so I wonder if those comments, while seemingly very harsh, are maybe more connected to that line where Travis is really trying to find a leader for this team.
That's a great point. And to put a little more historical perspective on it, really going back 6 years, because Javon Bess
that's a great point.
Was a leader that taught the team how to work, that taught the team how to win, that taught Jordan Goodwin, who always had the competitive gene in his body since he was a little kid, but under the tutelage of Javon Bess, sort of learned how to take that internal competitiveness and turn it into leadership. And Jordan Goodwin really embraced the leadership aspect of his role with the Billikens. Those guys are gone. And who will that be? I could name a couple of candidates that I see out on the floor. It's one thing to want to lead. It's another thing for people to want to follow. And so sort of watching this thing develop during the season will be more than interesting. It'll be critical for this team's success.
With his issues offensively, Yuri Collins, that is, do you think that that's a good time to maybe, put that extra pressure and lean on him a little bit? Or do you think maybe that's a moment to, like you said, lean on a guy like Fred Thatch or Martin Linson, who maybe is in that same category of you want them to be a team leader? Because like you talked about, he's struggling a lot right now. And I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to say. I am wondering, though, if it was the right time to say it.
Well, without being around the team for every conversation, being in the office and hearing conversations, it's really hard to answer that question directly. I think it's a reasonable question, though. I really do. I would say that because of the importance of the next 3 games. You're 2-3 in the big 8 SOS games, as I've termed them, non-conference games. There's 3 of those left. You still have a shot to have a really excellent non-conference, 1-loss strength of schedule record. But there's only 3 left. And if you let those opportunities slip away, you can't get them back in conference play. These opportunities are here, they're now, and then they'll be gone. So what you do over the next 2 weeks with Boston College, with Auburn, and with Drake, that's going to be real critical as you set your resume for March. I know it's only December, but these games are scheduled for March, meaning for the meaningful addition to the resume when March comes around. So I think identifying your problem and trying to address it now is the right thing to do. Will it work? I guess the first thing we do is we find out on Saturday evening as Boston College comes to town.
And before we jump into Boston College, I do want to say, Stu Rando, the Post-Dispatch, reported that Yuri told him today that they had a team-only meeting. Stu, kind of for some context, said that they usually do that about twice a year. So, yep. Right, we're talking about leadership and specifically Yuri Collins, and it sounds like he's taken that leadership upon him to, kind of maybe be the head guy in this players-only meeting. I'm interested to see what happens. I think I like the timing of it by the team, and I thought that was an interesting move in light of just everything with the games he's played, his comments afterwards. I think that was an interesting comment today that we saw from Stu Rando's reporting from Yuri Collins.
I said I wasn't going to mention any names, but I will anyway. And that is when I see guys.
Classic grammar. I love it.
Obviously, Yuri can be a leader. He's got the ball in his hands all the time. I've never seen him be a real vocal guy, and you don't have to be vocal. You don't have to be a rah-rah guy to be a leader.
There's a difference between yelling on defense and being that kind of leader and being the locker room guy, the home guy. That too.
Is Terrence Hargrove Jr. that guy? I know he puts in the work. He's a vocal guy. He really enthusiastically roots for his teammates' success. I noticed this year more than last that veteran Martin Linson has been very, very vocal. But again, it's hard. It's hard to, if you're not, I would say I'm a sort of an outsider. I have a little bit of insight being around the team, but I'm not, like in the old days, truly embedded with the team. So it's hard to say who the rest of the group looks to. And following that over the next few games, I think will be fascinating, hopefully fascinating with a positive result.
So kind of looking forward towards Boston College, I kind of had one thing I wanted to look at and get your opinion on. We talked about this a little bit, but I want to expound on it. And that is something I noticed in the Belmont game, and maybe this is kind of the answer to some people's question out there, which is what's happening to the offense in the second half. And my larger answer to that question is the amount of options that Travis Ford is using right now is a little bit too shallow. And now I've been a big champion of the X's and O's offense we've seen from Travis. I know there's some people who hate the way he uses the weave. I actually think it's a useful way to use that strategy. One of the few times in college it's actually beneficial and moves the ball forward. Mm-hmm. But I like what we see from him, but it's not enough right now. And there might be a case of having to take a huge chunk of your playbook out because of Javonte Perkins or replace it. But I really think the one thing I want to see more, and I think we will see just because of the timing, is I want to see more of Jordan Nesbit getting play calls for him. Because it seems right now that Jay Nez's, the majority of his game is hustle plays, late in the shot clock, kind of around the horn, open passes or kickouts. And then he's the secondary ball handler, also late kind of in plays. I would like to see him on sets when Jimerson especially is on the bench, get the same kind of looks that they set up for Gibson Jimerson. Those weak side cuts, elbow cuts where he gets to curl hard and crash the rim, those backdoor cuts that Jimerson is so good at. If you just watch that putback dunk that Jay Nez had, and you watch his ability to handle the ball as a secondary ball handler, just combine those two factors, and you can't tell me that he's not going to be very deadly on those kind of crashes towards the rim. And so that's one thing. And I also think it helps because he's a guy who, maybe at times in offense he plays a little bit too wild. And this is a way to say, this is what you do on this play. You don't just got to wait and make something happen. You don't got to crash in and get a circus rebound to get your putback. This is your play. We're going to do some stuff over here, and then you get the backdoor cut. And if you get the ball, it's jam time. I would love to see that more from SLU, but again, I understand why with a freshman and with the offense the way it has been, why maybe that hasn't been seen just yet.
Several things there. As a generality, I think you're onto something. We see a young man with marvelous talent, and we'd like to see it. We'd like to see more production from it. I think that Jay Nez is walking a tightrope of letting the game come to him, which can sometimes make him seem passive, versus the flip side of the coin, forcing offense, which will get you on the bench. So trying to find that balance, find out who he is. I've been to tons of Billiken practices and tons of shoot-arounds over the last few years. I can't specifically think of Travis telling somebody not to look to score. In fact, when they run patterned offense, they don't usually run a play with Matt Rocchio. This is the play we run for you, Matt. What they do is they run plays, and maybe your options are the first to get to, but Travis is always talking to the team as they run a set, all the different things that you can do off of a set. I think Travis is the most offensively, his comments are most offensively conducive to getting everybody involved in that offense of any of the Billiken coaches I've ever been around. Grauer, Spoonhour, Romar, Soderberg, Majerus, Cruz. I think he, more than any of those coaches, and they're all terrific in their own right, embraces everybody getting involved in the offense and to understand what you can do to score. And that's why it kind of surprised me sometimes in the past when teams aren't scoring, guys aren't scoring a lot. He really instilled, or at least to me as an outside observer, instills confidence in players to score. Now, if you're taking stupid shots, you will hear about it. That doesn't mean just shoot anytime you feel like it, any kind of shot you want. But if you do it within your skill set, within the offense, understanding time and score, and all those details, I can't understand why any offensive player wouldn't want to play for Travis.
Yeah, and that's what I expected, and that's why I'm just surprised that we're not seeing the same kind of sets. Because, like you said, it's not about just the fact that Gibson's out there. It's about this is the set we use, because it's part of our playbook. And we've talked a lot about the offensive play calls, and you mentioned how he's got one of the biggest playbooks out there. But I think we have to admit that despite all those things that entice us that we're big fans of, there is something going on with the offense in the second half of these games. And whether it's the teams taking things away and Travis not, making the correct counters, or it is a guy like Yuri, having trouble and teams maybe figuring out his tendencies or the tendencies of Gibson late in games. There is something going on here in the second half. And I think against a good defensive team like BC, it'll be another very good example of if SLU starts out fast, are they able to do the same things early that they're able to do late? Or is there some kind of change in the halftime room again? And that's something that I think SLU fans are going to have to watch for in what will probably be a lower scored game, but I think one that SLU really needs to win and should win.
Yeah, and you talk about Boston College. Here's the thing that we're starting to see a trend. You mentioned Martin Linson. Boston College has 2 6'9" guys. They're a little bit. They're different kinds of players. The one big kid,
and a 7-footer.
Yeah, but he doesn't play. The 7-footer doesn't play. but the 6'9", 230-pound kid, Karnick, he a little bit bigger version in my view, and just looking at clips and numbers, Brian Conklin, who played for Rick Majerus.
Mm-hmm. I like that pick. Yeah, I like that.
A real hard ass, but who's coming into his own offensively. And then the other kid is Bickerstaff, who's 6'9", but only 210, but he can do some inside out stuff. And if they play 2 6'9" guys together, what will the Billikens do? Because we've seen some issues with that in the last 4 or 5 games. Really more than that since Memphis. I think this is going to be a real challenge.
I'm going to be watching early because I don't think we're going to see a change in the starting lineup. I'm going to be watching early the battle between TJ Hargrove and TJ Bickerstaff, the battle of the TJs at the 4 spot on Saturday afternoon, because I think that's going to be the lineup he draws. I think Linson's going to draw Karnick, or the Senators will draw Karnick. And then so he's going to be giving up 5 inches. But he's going to actually have about 10 pounds on the guy. So I'm going to be very interested after some rough games. I'm not expecting TJ to score a ton this game, because it's going to be a lower scoring game, and I think this really needs to be a game where Yuri controls the offense. But I'm going to be watching almost every defensive possession. How is TJ doing on the block against this guy? Is he able to take advantage of him in transition? Things like that. I think this will be a big non-scoring game for TJ Hargrove, and I think that could be big for him because he struggled a little bit, although he's shooting that 3 well. He's still shooting the 3 well, which I think is important.
Yeah, so last thing on the game, I think, is when you take a look, despite their size, Boston College gets out-rebounded. The thing that's critical here is, can you keep them from second-chance buckets? Can you do that? But because they're so good defensively and they'll limit your opportunities with their defense, you have to bring your level of turnovers down, because theoretically your opportunities are going to be less generally. So each turnover might have more end value for Boston College every time you turn it over.
Yeah, and this is funny to me. We just talked about in the last episode about teams that don't shoot the 3 very well, or don't really shoot it at all. Boston College is one of those teams I talked about. They're 352nd in the country at 3-point rate, but they hit it at a top 25 rate. So They don't take a lot, but they do hit them when they do take them. That's something to see. They don't take more than about 12 per game. And so will we see if it's higher than that and they're hitting them, that could be a factor that kind of flips this game around.
Yeah, so a final is that let's look for somebody along with Jimerson to kind of pump up the scoring a little bit to make the Billikens harder to guard in the second half. Somebody who can get their shot and make their shot. Is it DeAndre Jones? Does Rashad Williams get a look? Can Jordan Nesbit go off and have a game? He could put up 24 points and nobody would be surprised because of his ability. So who is it going to be? Those would be the things to look for. So
I'm gonna put in a little prediction, because obviously with you on the broadcast, I'm not going to ask you for that. That would be unfair. But I'm going to put in a little prediction on that one. We'll talk about this on Monday, see how bad I make myself look, because I didn't have to put myself out here like this. But I'm going to. So I'm going to say this right now. Gibson's going to be the leading scorer, but this will be another big game for DeAndre Jones. He's going to come out. He's going to have a couple big threes. We'll see him around 12, 13 points, and that'll be right around second on the team. I think DeAndre Jones is the guy who steps up and has another solid game.
Okay. All right. Very good. What are we looking forward to in the NBA this weekend?
Good weekend slate. Listen, I've been talking down the Denver Nuggets because of all the injuries, which is completely fair. But if you want to watch great basketball, still watch a Nuggets game. And there was an article ESPN put out today about how, despite they asked 100 experts who's going to be the MVP this year, and Nikola Jokic was far fourth behind Curry, Durant, and I can't remember who the third one was. And a great NBA writer, if you want to follow him on Twitter, his name's Nikias Duncan. I wanted to make sure I said his first name right. Nikias Duncan did an amazing breakdown about how Jokic is about to have back-to-back the most efficient scoring seasons ever by a big man in the NBA. And so he's about to have two 26 plus point seasons while having an effective field goal percentage. So threes are weighted a little bit more, free throws are weighted the same, an effective field goal percentage of over 65%. Shaq never did that. Kareem never did that. He's about to put up two of the most efficient 2 seasons ever back-to-back for a big man. And for some reason, for him to be that far away and fourth behind those guys, just because the Nuggets are saddled with injuries, is crazy in my opinion. But with that said, watch a Denver Nuggets game if you can. They play San Antonio late on Saturday. So you can watch that after the SLU game. It should be starting about an hour afterwards. That's going to be a good game because Jokic is going to go absolutely off. The Spurs aren't very good. So Jokic is going to go off. I mean, this is a guy who routinely will uncork 36, 11, and 11. And those 11 assists will be some of the silkiest passes, whether they be outlet from the post in transition. They will be 11 of the silkiest passes you will have ever seen. Again, it's depressing.
Isn't it funny how we love a big man who can really pass the ball?
That's my week. When it comes to basketball, a big man who can pass is my favorite thing in the entire world. So it's literally right up my alley. Also,
I agree 100%.
Here's the thing. I personally hate watching commercials, so I always have something on my last button, Rammer. I don't know if you're like that. Whenever I'm watching TV, I got 2 things going. I have the thing I want, and then I have my last button pick whenever there's a commercial. And so you have a perfect combo here because on the national side on ABC, the Warriors and the 76ers are playing. So Joel Embiid is healthy and going off on people. Golden State Warriors don't have a great 5. I love Draymond Green. I love Kevon Looney. They are not Joel Embiid. So Joel Embiid might score 40. Steph Curry is playing, so he might score 50. So a great slate on Saturday. Sunday, a little bit lighter. An 11 a.m. game, which is kind of cool between the Bucks and the Knicks. So if you want to watch some Giannis and MSG on a Sunday morning, you can. That's kind of cool. So good slates for the weekend. Some late games on Saturday, an early game on Sunday. And if at any point you want to watch a team get beat by like 70, the Thunder play a couple times too.
Hey, a quick thought in general terms. You already mentioned earlier in the show about the Memphis Grizzlies who are winning games and I got to see them in person and they're a lot of fun. Ja Morant has been out, but they've still been playing pretty good overall without Morant. In a weird sort of way, can playing without him and finding ways to win benefit them when he comes back?
Yes. Jaren Jackson Jr. is playing finally up to his level. This is a guy, I mean, injuries have been a big reason why he hasn't, but he's finally able to play to that level because he's healthy. And so having him kind of be in a leadership position is great for their development. Desmond Bane, who's a guard, really good. He's in the running for – yep, there you go. He's in the running for most improved player in the NBA alongside guys like Jordan Poole of the Warriors. And so having him to take a scoring load. You see, for me, Jaren Jackson Jr., him playing at any point's good, but him playing without Morant forces a leadership and a put the team on your shoulders aspect that he's never had to deal with in his NBA career. Desmond Bane, on the other hand, I hear a lot of great things about him in the locker room, but I'm less worried about that and more worried about him continuing to take a scoring role onto his shoulders, which is why he's going to be in the most improved players conversation because his scoring's jumped about, I want to say 6 points. And so can he take an even bigger role in the scoring? And then can guys like Brandon Clark, who really showed out as a rookie, can he kind of get back to what we saw him in his rookie year? He struggled a little bit. He's played pretty well coming off the bench in the last few games for the Grizzlies. The game will be very fun on Saturday. They're playing the Rockets before that amazing twofer that I just talked about earlier. But again, if you want to watch Jaren Jackson Jr. maybe just blow up an entire offense, that'll be a good game for that.
That'll be a good game for that. Well, Rocc, have a fun weekend watching all the hoops going on. This is going to be a great weekend, whether you like the college game, the pro game, or both. And we'll be back next Tuesday to tell everybody what we saw, what we thought, and
And of course, they can hear you at what is it, a 4 p.m. tip off on Camo X for Belmont down at Chaffetz. Tickets are available. Fill up the Chaffetz Arena. And if you can't make it to the game, or maybe you want to go old school and bring in your radio anyhow, tune to 1120 to hear Mr. Rammer call the game.
Boy, I haven't seen that in a long time. I'd like somebody. We got to come up with a prize if somebody actually comes up to me and shows me their transistor radio and earplug. Wouldn't that be great?
That would, yeah. We'll figure out. We'll figure out something. We'll find a way to get you to another SLU game, I think.
I'll tell you what. The first person on Saturday that comes up to me and shows me their transistor radio with their earplug in gets a Mike Claiborne Christmas sweater from Claibs Online.
There it is. There it is.
There you go.
All right, we'll put it out there. I'll make sure when I retweet the broadcast tomorrow, everyone knows.
All right, very good. That's Matt Rocchio. I'm Bob Ramsey. It's the two-man game right here on Claibs Online. Have a great weekend, everybody.